Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review for Blood Upon the Sand by Bradley Beaulieu. This is also my first official Vlogmas video for this year. Yay! So if you are interested in all my Vlogmas content, I'll be uploading either on this channel or on my other channel, which is everything non-book related that I'm into, every day up until Christmas. So if you don't want to miss anything, my link for my other channel is down below. So go and follow me there to get all the content. I have a lot of fun videos coming up. There's a mix of book stuff and a mix of stuff over there, so check it out. This is actually a video review that I wasn't going to do because I was like, no one is really reading this series, and I'm like, no. You need to do it to force people to read this series. So this is the second book in the Shattered Sands series, and this is an adult, I would almost call it like a grimdark desert-based fantasy series. I think there's 5, maybe 6 books out in this series, and I don't know how many it's supposed to be. I haven't even looked into it because I'm like afraid of looking into it and getting spoiled. This is the second book in the series. The first book is the 12 Kings and Shira Kai. I've done a review for that book, so I will link it on the screen. This review will not have spoilers for this book, but it might for the first one, so go and check that out. I'm not going to go into depth with spoilers, but in case you don't want to know anything. So this directly follows the events of the first book. Cheda is part of the political system and in the Blade Maidens and is trying to take down the kings from within the Blade Maidens, which was her whole goal within the first book. But things get a lot more interesting in here because now she's trying to hide that she's sort of this like double agent. I mean, not a double agent, she's not working for anybody else, but that she has an alternate goal. And she's also trying to survive. There's a ton of different people involved, and this book just takes a whole huge leaping step up on the political intrigue, the world building expansion and everything. So let's get into it. This book does have triggers for blood, gore, and torture, blood magic, so there is self-harm involved in that. And there's also some disordered eating type triggers because one of the mages also does starve herself a lot in order to make herself more powerful with her blood magic. So just be aware of all of those things. So first off, I'm gonna talk about the world building. The world building in this series, so good. I mean, I can just envision everything really well with the world building in here, and there is so much to just sink your teeth into. There are the 12 kings who have godlike powers that were bestowed by the gods. So you have these godlike figures that aren't gods. We are trying to figure out how they can be defeated because they each have a specific weakness, which is very like fairy tale-esque in a way. And then you have the gods. You have different political sort of like factions around the desert that are involved in things, and this just adds to the political intrigue because in the first book we just knew much more only about the Shira Kai stuff, and in this book we get expanded to a lot of the other surrounding areas. Not a ton, but a lot more is added in about what's going on with them. Also just the different types of magic and the kinds of like magical creatures that pop in. This is not super creature heavy, but more creatures and magical like creations are popping in this book, which is also super fun. Next, I'm gonna talk about our characters. Our main character, Cheda, is one of my favorite characters that I've read about. She seems at like face value when you describe the book. It's like, oh, it's this girl on a vengeance quest. Well, this woman, she's a grown woman, on this vengeance quest because her mother was killed. She doesn't know why. But the complexity of Cheda as a person, she's not just this like vengeance incarnate type person. Like, she's stubborn and she's impulsive at times, but she's also incredibly smart, and she also like forms bonds with people like in really interesting ways, and I just really adore her. We also get a lot of other side characters in this book. They're like input. So what was interesting for me was that a lot of characters that popped up in the first book that I thought were just going to be like one-off NPC type characters that like are popping in just for the story, oh no, they get like their own thing in this book. So a lot more characters we get to follow. Still, Cheda is the main character, so she's the one we get the most chapters from, but we also get some additional characters and what's going on with them and how this web is all gonna eventually intertwine. So intrigued. We also get more stuff from the kings, which we did get in the last book, but this book I would say we get even more, and there's a lot of twists there behind the scenes, so that's also really interesting. Like, the kings have their own shit going on, she has stuff going on, other political like factions have things going on, and because of the amount of like people in this web, there are also really interesting villains and different like types of villains. We have like mean girl type characters, and the fact that like Cheda's in the Blade Maidens and there's some Blade Maidens that don't think she should be there, so it feels very like Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, like that type of vibe when it comes to like the Blade Maiden stuff. But then there's all these other villains popping up, not just the kings, but also other like villains in other political areas. There's like a blood mage vampire type dude doing crazy shit like over here that's gonna affect everything. So it's really cool, and it also has people on like the whole spectrum of morality and very like kind of gray characters, and you know, doing bad things for good reasons and good things for bad reasons, and all this stuff that just make it a very complex, interesting character web, and how all these characters like interact at times that just feels very real. Like this is one of those series that like when you feel like you're not reading it, you still feel like it's happening like in an alternate reality. I don't know if you get that vibe about some books, but I do. So I'm like, these characters are like fully living their lives somewhere. Like, these are real. I'm not making them real by reading them. They're existing somewhere else. So lastly, and I kind of mentioned this, I'll talk about the plot. This, for being a pretty big book, it reads so fast. I enjoy all of the political intrigue in here, but it's a good mix of political intrigue, action, and magic that just keeps you really engaged. And there's just a lot of like twists and turns here that I just wasn't expecting. Again, there's things that I'm like, I just didn't know where it's gonna go, and I never really know where this series is gonna go, and I really enjoy that. So I highly recommend checking this series out if you have not. It's just so good. It's one of the best series that's currently ongoing that I have read, so definitely give this a try if you haven't. I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. So comment below, let me know what you thought of Blood Upon the Sand, and also if my reviews are going to have you check this series out, please let me know. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye!